Welcome back to Anime Everyday. I just want to start by saying a big thank you to all your support on the new videos on this channel. It's been great reading all your lovely comments. We're listening, we're learning, and we have some great plans for this channel. But first and foremost, it's about creating great videos for you guys. Japan is a hot pot for science fiction pop culture, having cultivated and defined some of the genre's greatest aesthetics and sensibilities for its various media. Japanese anime itself is an incredibly influential figure in pop culture throughout the world, not only globalizing Japanese culture, but the new and inventive ideas coming out of some of their best artists, writers and directors. Probably most of all is anime that has broken through the zeitgeist the most and had the greatest influence on all of our pop culture sensibilities. Where would the anime community be today without its giant mechas fighting wars through space, various aliens falling through our bedroom ceilings, or androids having an existential crisis? You could argue that it's sci-fi anime that has shone through the most, as various series under this genre have had a hand in defining and redefining the look and feel of the worlds of tomorrow, or at the very least, how the world looks across the sci-fi genre. So, in no particular order, let's run down a few of the greatest anime. Let's get the obvious one out of the way first. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Originally broadcast from 1995 to 1996, it is considered one of the seminal works of Japanese animation. It is not only regarded by many as one of the greatest anime series of all time, but a defining stop in the evolution of sci-fi. Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of the most complex, harrowing, and altogether dense works of narrative art that I've ever seen. There was no reaction I could have had except immediately jumping into heavy analysis, so expect a bunch more videos around EVA over this channel's lifetime. Prior to Evangelion, Gundam was probably the anime community's main entryway into the mecha genre. It basically defined the tone of this subgenre with big robots, big fights, and space explosions. And Gundam did a great job at this. Mobile Suit Gundam elevated mecha shows from semi-superhero super robots into the realm of hard sci-fi. But then came Evangelion and it flipped the community on its head, as it turned what could have been another sci-fi epic into a deeply human story where characters reflected and examined the consequences of their actions, choices, and places in the world. The post-apocalypse is a backdrop so often taken for granted in sci-fi entertainment that to see something treat such a premise this starkly is startling. The opening 2 episodes lay that apocalyptic path down quite clearly. We start with Shinji, a rejected child in the midst of a depression he cannot name. The world is on his shoulders because he must pilot one of the Avas, which are massive robots built for the purpose of destroying angels. These are giant monsters that have already wreaked havoc on a world trying to survive off the apocalypse. Yes, Evangelion rests firmly in the grand tradition of kaiju versus giant mechs that stretches through Japanese cinematic history. But the story gets even more layered and emotional as the main character learns the traumatizing cost of his inaction. Much like the 14-year-olds at the center of the story, you end up feeling so many different emotions as the narrative whiplashes in tone and intent. It is ultimately a show about depression, about the depths and the reach of loss. And it does justice to these heavy topics with a maturity and originality uncommon in Western television. I wouldn't call it a happy show, but it is a phenomenal one. It may be confusing at times, but if it speaks to you, then that's wonderful, and welcome to the shared understanding of such a weird and moving piece of art. SteinsGate. It started in 2009 as the second game in a science adventure visual novel video game, followed on straight after its predecessor, Chaos Head. The story follows a group of students as they discover and develop technology that gives them the means to change the past. White Fox acquired the rights to an adaptation and the anime was released back in April 2011. Just like the game, the central themes of the anime is the concepts of time travel, showcasing Rintaro Okabe, a mad scientist who discovered a way to connect with the past. The plot of this anime is intriguing because although time travel is a common trope of many science fiction work, in SteinsGate it is presented in a pretty unique manner. Okabe and his friends use his cell phone and a microwave to create a connection with the past. Unlike most other time travel stories, they do not actually travel back in time. Instead, Okabe sends text messages, which affect his present life. These so-called D-mails have a multitude of effects and consequences, starting with the series off strong when they are able to save the life of a neuroscientist who died at the beginning of the series. What is similar to other well-known works that depict time travel is that SteinsGate shows viewers the ethical and dangerous consequences of intruding on time. It has some really great characters who really carry the show through the first 12 episodes or so, just until the plot actually starts. Now you may think that waiting 12 episodes for the plot to start is a terrible thing. I nearly dropped SteinsGate on my first watch, but ultimately it was the characters that made me push through, and I'm so glad I did, as the central plot of the second half of the show is just incredible. But the plot is absolutely dependent on you caring about these characters. understanding their personalities and thus having a huge emotional investment in the horrible situation Kyoma suddenly finds himself in. These characters are a lot of fun, constantly being witty with each other and spouting pop culture reference. They joke and tease each other constantly. When Kyoma pulls his mad scientist act, it's exactly that, an act that they all know is an act, and he's doing so to calm his nerves and entertain his friends. The characters' interactions at points remind you of those of Kevin Smith movies, so if you do find those annoying, then SteinsGate might not be for you. But overall, SteinsGate is an anime that takes time travel concept and gives it an air of mystery by limiting the characters' interactions. The butterfly effect takes some really weird and surprising turns when all you can send back is a text message. So because of this, the characters have no idea how or who really changed things, removing all reliability and familiarity with their focuses. As characters experiment with time travel, the show explores different paths and histories of the characters affected by it, using time travel as a what-if opportunity to explore different perspectives. It's a sharply written and tautly paced anime series, and if you haven't seen this, now is as good a time as any. Going back to the giant robots, one of the most visually ambitious and effectively written mecha series to date is Toppen Gurren Lagann, or Gurren Lagann, known for short. In what could have easily been a long-running series about fighting various wars and the exploration of the expanses of space, Gainax made a series that encapsulates the feel and ambition of a long-running hero's journey, turn it into a fast-paced shot of adrenaline that is Gurren Lagann. The major plotline reflects a very dramatic political scenario of total oppression of humans by the Beastmen led by the Lord Gino. The story revolves around two young boys from an underground village where they live and work as diggers, expanding the pit deeper and deeper by the day. The older boy, Kamina, is a passionate person convinced that there is a surface above their village, while everyone else believes that the world above the ground is a myth. While on the other hand, you have the younger of the two boys, Simon. He's timid, he's shy, he's pushed forward by Kamina's never-ending search for adventure and faith in him. Both characters go through a wide range of experiences that eventually cause their evolution and development alongside their multiple friends and followers. Over the course of the story, the main protagonists end up bursting out onto the surface and learn that this mythical surface world does actually exist. They meet new friends like Yoko and face serious challenges, especially against their new king, Lord Gino. The boys and their new friends form Team Gurren as a response and fight for the freedoms of human and ultimately overthrow the king. Now, as this plot may suggest, Gurren Lagann includes the topics of political conspiracy, discrimination, class gaps, and oppression based on culture and background, just to name a few. Yet, despite these complex themes, the series is ultimately light, optimistic, and even humorous at times. But the real treat of Gurren Lagann is how enjoyable the main cast is. Kamina succeeds as the confident older brother type and makes one of the biggest impressions as the leader of Team Gurren. He's loud, abrasive, and confident to the point of arrogance, but to challenge such overwhelming odds requires that level of self-delusion. Simon starts off as this timid kid who has to grow into a role of leadership that is suddenly thrust upon him. And Yoko is an excellent counterpart to Kamina's and Simon, the kind of sugar and fire personality you just don't get anymore. Added in with that blend of foresight and empathy that our two idiot partners usually hop into the robot too quickly to use. Character development is a strong point for Gurren Lagann, and if you've watched the show, you know of the big twist in episode 8. The consequences of this twist are approached in full force, and we really get to see how this affects all the characters and their actions. If you haven't seen Gurren Lagann, and this does sound like your kind of show, then just remember to bring a box of tissues for that episode, as it definitely hits the emotional heartstrings of its audience. I won't go into too much as it's a big spoiler, but not many works would take this approach, let alone sci-fi anime specifically. And I commend the writers for taking such a bold choice, as the impact of this moment really does shape the rest of the series. On top of a great story, interesting themes and well-developed characters, the fights in this show are just pure anime goodness. The choreography and environments make every fight well executed, and literally every character is fun to watch and too stubborn to die. The reoccurring antagonist, Viral, is a personal favourite of mine. It's all dazzling to watch. Other anime just generally can't compete. Gurren Lagann's visuals are consistently strong. If not for the line art, you could probably convince most first-time viewers that this show came out just last year. The art is just that good. Gurren Lagann has survived the test of time and aged remarkably well. You can easily sit down and watch this in 2022 with the same level of enjoyment as you could back in 2007, and that's a tall order for any older anime. But Gurren Lagann makes it look easy. I might be a stickler for how anime comes together as a full meal, but it's so rare to get a show that does not drag at any points in its 27 episodes that I'm willing to just shut up and take what I'm given. this is definitely a must watch. There's so many different shows and movies that I could have added to this list, such as Paprika, Psycho Pass, or Promised Neverland, but this list would be endless. Do let me know in the comments which anime you think I should have added to the list, and which of these 3 would you like to see more about. Until the next video, this has been Anime Everyday.